All right, guys, here we go. Started day one on my new 30-day thrash on the four-door. Today is Wednesday, December 15th, 2021. So I've got the, oh man, it's quite the mess you have to orchestrate here. So I moved the chassis out of the way. I've got the 55 hardtop pulled back. I went ahead and bolted the core support back to the chassis to get it out of the way because it was sitting here on a towel. I just have nowhere to put it. It's big and bulky, so I just put it right back on there. Anyway, I moved the 55 back and I was like, well, I might be able to get this door hung before it starts raining. So that's the plan. It is supposed to rain today. It does look like it might have rained through the night. But anyway, I'm going to see how far I can get with this door. And I might be able to get it done. As that way I don't have to, move the car around over and everything to get to that side. So anyway, this door is completely together pretty much for the most part with all the latches and the window regulator and all that stuff, so it's rather heavy. I am trying to do this by myself, get it hung on the car and everything. So for me, it's always best to remove everything and then hang the door, and then I'll just lay everything back in there for the weight so I know when it's put on, it's where it's going to be. This is one of my biggest pet peeves. Right here, this drives me insane. When the latches are painted at the same time as the car, that drives me nuts, man. Anyway, so that'll have to be paint stripped off there and cleaned up, and I'll probably just paint those with some silver color, but I'll probably replace the screws with stainless, more than likely, but if not, I'll blast those and spray paint them or something. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and strip this door all down really clean. I'm going to get all the old weather stripping off, get the old remnants of the weather stripping clips out of it. This door bottom's really nice. It does look a little scaly, but it's not terrible. I think I'll definitely blast this lower part of the door, and if anything goes through, I'll fix it, but I don't think there's anything deep enough that'll need repair. Anyway, I've got a screwdriver out. I'm getting ready to take everything out. I'm taking the window out, the regulator, all the latch stuff, the handle, everything. To get this thing lightened up, and all this stuff's going to have to be soaked anyway. I'll probably soak this, well, a lot of the parts, the latch, that, and the lock stuff in Evapor Rust. That way it'll clean it up real nice, and probably just spray paint that stuff silver or something, whatever I got over there, because you're not going to see it anyway. But anyway, I'm going to get started here. I guess I'll set up a tripod for you so you can see me taking that apart. All right, let's do some stripping. Not that kind of stripping. So this is a clip removing tool for your window cranks and door handles. It's kind of shaped funny if you can see that up against that there, but anyway, it's designed to just slip in behind there, and it catches the little horseshoe shaped clip in there. Normally the clips go in, you put the tool in from the front of the handle like that, but it depends on who had it off last and which direction they put it on. But I have seen them backwards before. But anyway, you just push on it, and usually it pulls it up off there, but that one wouldn't work, so I had to use a 90-degree pick and get in there and slide it the rest of the way off. Anyway, that's how you remove that. I know a lot of you guys know that stuff, but these are very inexpensive. They're just like, I don't know, $5 or something at the parts store. So when you take these four-door rear doors apart, if the window regulator's never been out, there will be little sections of butyl right here. So you peel all this up, and there will be your screws underneath there. So these haven't been messed with, so I'll have to peel all that stuff off and put them back on. But anyway, the lock mechanism up here, there's a couple of little parts going on here. It's kind of unique. Of course, it's a Phillips screw, but it has a little shoulder on it right there. Now it has a wave style washer on it. This is not a flat washer. So that goes with the screw on this side of the bracket here. So at that point you'll pull this out and up, and there will be a cup washer here, like that. So the cup washer goes on just like that. That's basically a spacer to get it up off of the square nut here down in that channel. Pop that clip down there, pull that back out, and then I'm going to slip this clip back on there and snap it back on. That way I don't lose this little thing. Man. Anyway, there's one piece. Another clip to contend with here. Again, I'm going to slip the clip back on there so I don't lose it. Now's the perfect time to get the little Ziplocs out. I am running low on Ziplocs, or craft bags, I guess is what they're called, these little rigs here. Okay, so. Door lock right rear, that's what we're going with. Let's see, do a smaller one here. Inside handle. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen people take apart cars, or I have worked on cars that people have taken apart, and they will take every bit of this crap off and they'll just throw it in a box or a tote or something. They won't tag it and they won't bag it. And they, you know, as they're taking it apart, I'm sure they're thinking, oh, this is simple, I'll remember this. But then by the time you get your car out of paint jail or, you know, wherever, and you go back, you know, a lot of time has passed. In most cases, it's a year or two. You don't remember how it went back together. So if you write a good description on there of what that is, you've got the bags to take out, and then it kind of helps you remember. It's always best to have lots of sizes of craft bags and Ziploc bags. Like in this case, a gallon size would be awesome, or a quart maybe. And you know, I could put this stuff in there, even though this rod is really long. I can, you know, poke it through the bag and let it hang out a little bit. But I can get everything in there, and then I can label it right rear door. So I know that's how that pretty much goes. These cars are simple. I mean, this is simplicity at its finest working on these cars. But when you take one apart and time goes by, you forget how things go together. So it's always best to tag and bag. And if it's pretty intricate, keep that in mind, that time is going to pass before you get back to it. So you can take a piece of paper and you can draw you a little diagram of it, how it goes, and you know, fold it all up and put it inside the craft bag with it. It's like a little one-eyed Willie treasure map for you, so you know how to put it back together. If you do not have any hardware for your, your window regulator and stuff like that, and the one that holds the door handle on right here, the 3, these are 1/4 by 20 thread size. They're not very long. I want to say they're probably 3/8 long. 1/2 inch long probably work. Now I don't know for sure because I haven't measured it, but I lost the dang butyl off here. I have the door setting on pipe insulation from Lowe's, so it's not laying completely flat on the floor. It's just pipe insulation that you get at Lowe's and a long stick of it, and they're cut down. I actually use those on top of my sawhorses. I have little plastic sawhorses, and I slip those on. I don't ever pull the plastic off of the adhesive, I just leave it, but I slip them over the top of that, and it adds a little cushion to a door or something if you're working on it. You can get a long stick of that for like, I think it's like $7 or something. But one long stick will usually get you, I think it's 4 pieces that you can put on 4 sawhorses. So anyway, another little tip. Actually, I better take the window regulator loose first. Now there is little bitty Phillips screws down in here. That's what this little square cutout is for right here. This is to access the screws in your lower track here. I just realized this window track, the whole piece is gone off the bottom of that. But I do have extra tracks in a box in my shed, so not that big a deal. Or I can weld it back on there maybe. When I get it out of there, I'll show you. So you get these little screws out right here. Little Phillips screws, and they, now I have seen these countersink, and I've seen them panhead style. So I don't know that it really matters, but I've also seen tracks that have countersink slots. So it might be different locations of where the car was assembled. This one only has one in it. Stick it over here to the side. But other than that, the window. This window's broken, so I don't have to worry about it. So here's what's missing on my window track is one of these. It's supposed to go right there. So it is. Looks like it's just ripped out of there. It doesn't look rusted. So anyway, if that is not in the box, you know what? I think I remember seeing that in a box of parts. But I have a lot of extra window tracks in my shed from 4-doors, so I'll probably just replace it. Yeah, I don't think it's in the door. I think I remember seeing that somewhere, if I remember right. Anyway, you got your little track here, and you'll just pretty much slide it off like that. That dude out of there like that, and you got this little rig here, and that is where that little screw goes. 2 of them is down in them 4 holes like that. I have slide trays over there full of Tri-5 Chevy screws and nuts and bolts and everything, and I have a bin full of these because I used to drag in tons of 4-doors. For like 10 years I drug in 4-doors. Some of them were parts cars, some of them were builders. Some of them I just flipped, but the ones that were parts cars, they got completely gutted, stripped, and all the hardware from those cars went in those slide trays. And it is nice to have when you drag in a car like this one that had been a lot of the stuff taken apart. Anyway, continuing on. Okay. Always pull your regulator out through your big access panel hole. So there's another one of these that is similar to this, but it has square nuts welded on it. And this goes with the open channel side toward the door skin, and bolts there. So anyway, at this point I get to inspect my rollers. The rollers are actually turning and they're not broken, which is kind of nice. They do sell these new in the parts books if you need to replace them. I have seen these springs broken before, so always check your spring there, and also check your teeth on your regulator. My very first hardtop, one of my rear window regulators, a couple of the teeth were completely torn off of it. They were just stripped off of it. And I went in there with a MIG welder, because poor people have poor ways, and I built those out of weld and went in and refiled those by hand, and that window worked perfectly. Now, did it last? I don't know. I only had the car for a year or two and then I sold it. But you know, window regulators are not super expensive, but at the time I had more parts to buy, so I just repaired mine. But it didn't take that long to do, if I remember right. It was pretty easy. But anyway, that regulator is in fantastic shape, so I am happy about that. Okay, so now I guess I'll move on to the door latch over here. Now this thing, sometimes these screws can be a bear in here. This screw holds the track for the window felt. Has a little star washer and a fine thread screw holding on there, and there's usually, like this one still has its little original rubber washer. Now, if you got a hardware store in your town, you can get brand new rubber washers. They have little slide trays and bins, and they have all kinds of different sizes, so you can pretty much match it up. It basically keeps your paint from getting chewed up, because that is a big hole. There's a lot of adjustment. So if you go in there with brand new paint and you don't put that rubber washer on there and you try to adjust that, it's just going to chew the crap out of the paint during the adjustment phase of it. So anyway, that was holding in the window felt track here. If you'll notice, it has a little notch in it right here. It kicks up. Anyway, it has a fine thread nut plate welded in it. But anyway, your brand new window felt strip clicks into that. So it has a little snap clip right here that snaps into a slot up here in the door. So what I usually do is write on here what side it is with a magic marker. And that way when I clean them up, I'll know which one goes where, basically. Well, that one came out easy. There's always got to be one, though, you know. Well, that one come out easy as well. Oh, wow. All right, time to go buy a lottery ticket. Didn't burr out the screws and didn't have one that was nice and rusty. Anyway, here's the rear door latch assembly. It's actually in pretty clean shape. So I will soak this more than likely in Purple Power degreaser, clean it up real good, And at that point I'll put it in. I was going to say I might soak it in muriatic acid, but you know, that usually will get the rust off and everything. That's probably what I'll do. And then I'll put some spray paint, silver paint on there, coat everything real good with paint so it doesn't rust as bad. And at that point I'll hose it with lithium grease. Or white grease, it just depends on my day and what I'm in the mood for, I guess. Anyway, so you got 2 weather stripping attachment clips right here. I think there's one on the other side as well. Now these are stuck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try tightening them on these regular old Phillips sheet metal style screws. Usually you can give it a tighten and it'll bust it loose. So yeah, this is just a little bitty tooth clip right there, and it basically is just a weather strip retainer is all it is. Man, that one is, when I tightened it, it moved. Don't you break on me, dude. Now, one thing that I do not do, and I have seen guys do it, these are actually fine thread screws. I thought those were regular old Phillips coarse style screws. But anyway, those are not. What I have seen people do before is they'll take WD-40, PB Blaster, you know, something like that, and they'll hose all that excuse me, hose all that stuff down on that door before they take it apart. Well, I'm getting ready to do body work and paint and all that kind of crap, and I don't want that stuff contaminated on my door, so I try to get everything off dry. So now I'm going to move on to removing the weather stripping. So I've got a little clip removing tool right here. These are just inexpensive ones from the store. There's the original Neptune green hiding under there. This door's pretty much stripped after this, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut off the video, guys, because the door is pretty much stripped. All right, so there is another track here I forgot in the door for your windlace, or not windlace, but your felt channel that goes down in there, and there's a number 2 Phillips screw right here with the star washer and a rubber washer under it, just like the other side. So anyway, I have to remove that. Anyway, now look at your door once you're, you know, taking it apart. In this area right through here on your front and your rear doors, they'll have, you may have nails left in there. These are from the original door panel strips. That's how the door panel's attached. They had a little metal strip in the door panel, and anyway, those nails are in there, and that's what goes in these. They're actually little slots. You can't see them for all the goop in the door here, but it's like a little indented channel. It's like, I don't know, about a 1/4 inch long or something. But anyway, those nails, usually if they stay in there, they're sticking up just a little bit, the head's out of them. And what I use is a pair of dikes, and I'll stick it up under that nail, and then I'll just pull up on it, and it'll get them nails out. And don't throw those on the floor, because that'll get in your tires. All right, so the door is stripped. I went ahead and I found a cardboard box. I wrote on it right rear door. I wrote on all 4 sides, depending on how I put that in my shed. I don't have to worry about trying to get it in one spot so I can read which one it is from in my loft when I'm looking up there. I'll know which box to grab. Anyway, I just stuck everything in there that has to do with the door. There's lots of the bagged components. So when the time comes, everything will get cleaned up. Like I'll soak all the right rear door stuff right here in like a degreaser or muriatic acid or whatever I need to do, and then go through and paint everything. And I'm not going to send the stuff out to have it recad plated and all that. I don't even know if anybody around here does that. I've just always spray painted the stuff when it's that bad anyway. Some of the stuff's pretty rusty, but anyway, that is the plan. But so now it's time to try to hang the door by myself. So I'm going to have to go in and find the screws, attaching screws to do that. I had already restored the screws for this. I'll see if I may have that video on my computer. If I do, you'll see that next. But for now, since I'm not sure where those screws are, I don't know if they're in my shed or in my house, I'm going to go through here. This is what I was talking about, my slide trays with hardware. I'll probably just use some of these to do the door, so I don't have to go in and use the other ones. What I had done is I went through and removed these are actually Phillips screws with a star washer under them. That's what attaches the rear doors to the jamb here. Now those are a bear to get out of there. Most of the time, well, almost every time, you have to have an impact driver. These are at the parts store, pretty inexpensive. You hit that end with a hammer and that turns a little bit every time you hit it with a hammer. So anyway, those things are usually always really, really seized up stuck. Anyway, sometimes they burr out. They get burred out a little bit. If they're not too bad burred, I will take a Scotch-It disc, a little 2-inch Scotch-It disc right here on an angle grinder, this rig here, and a little Scotch-It style disc like that. Put it on there, a red one, and I will just smooth that right off, smooth that burr off, get it all nice and flat again, and then I will take a number 1 Phillips screwdriver like this, and I'll take a cardboard box and I'll turn it upside down and I'll just poke a bunch of holes in that box, and then I'll stuff them screws, all the threads down in until all that's sticking up is the head, and then I'll go in there and I'll spray paint those with like a silver color spray paint, and anyway, they'll look pretty good if they're not burred out too bad. In my case, some of mine, when I restored all those screws before, some of them were burred really, really bad because they were really hard to get out. So I went through my drawer and our slide tray there and found nice ones and cleaned them up and used those. So souls of other Tri-5 4-doors will live on through this car. Anyway, so let's get started. All right, so I went through my slide tray here and I tried to find 6 good Phillips bolts to bolt this door on, so I don't have to go dig around and look for mine that I've already cleaned and painted. Anyway, I'm noticing some of these are pretty stripped. Now this is common because sometimes these are hard to get out and you have to use an impact driver and the threads get tore up, so keep that in mind. Don't try to put that, tore up threaded bolt back in there. Now these are Phillips head countersink, just completely flat, but these are 5/16 by 24 fine thread. So these are kind of an odd bolt because it's a small size, but it has a giant countersink head on it. Anyway, so these some of these are not any good. I need to throw them away. So I went through and I found 6 good ones that the threads looked okay on, and I used my bench grinder with the wire wheel and I cleaned up the threads a little bit just to get all the gunk out of them because they have some kind of sealer crap on them from the factory. So anyway, what I'm doing here is I have my thread cleaner set, and I'm going on here with a 5/16 by 24 die. And I'm just going to make sure these are good. I don't want to tear up my nut plates in the body. That would be really, really bad. Now I always use anti-seize when I go in for a final assembly on a car, on the door latches, everything. That way the next guy down the road 20 or 30, 40 years from now, whenever, when they go to take it apart, it's easy for them. So this one right here, I've got something up with the threads. There's a whole flattened off section of that, so this one I'm gonna throw in the trash. Had I tried to run that down in there, bolt the door on, I would have tore up the threads in my nut plate, so no good. one's okay. So I'll also take the 5/16 by 24 tap, and I will clean the nut plates and the body, make sure those threads are good. But at this time, I'm not going to put any kind of lube on the threads or anything, because I'm going to be doing some, painting on the car, and I don't want the oil, lubricant, and stuff in there contaminate the metal. This one's got a bad spot in it too. Yeah, it's just one little spot. I'll see if I can get it to fix here. So this is the non-fun side of building a car. If you're thorough like this anyway. Pretty much not doing this type of stuff, this little stuff like this is can pretty much make you have more work later. If the threads are messed up on the bolt or the nut plate in the car and you just drive it home anyway, when you go to take it back apart later, it's going to end up taking more threads and stuff off, and then it'll just be ruined. So it's always best to go ahead and do all this stuff first. That one's pretty trashed. That one's got a bad spot in it. Well, a lot of these I just need to throw away. This one actually looks like it may be good. All right, so here's where the fun begins when you're by yourself. So what I did was I took a couple of wire brushes, and I run this brush down in here just to clean the rust out of the edge of this. It was kind of a bunch of loose scale stuff, and then I used a wire brush on this just to clean off all the stuff. Now you'll find on these 4-doors they'll have a lot of goopy stuff up in here sometimes, so you make sure your attaching points for your hinges are clean, so there's nothing under there to make it raised up off of the body or whatever. Anyway, so this door is pretty much ready to get hung. And this is the beauty of taking the door apart, because it weighs not a lot. But also, the car's mostly in bare metal. These doors are going to be in bare metal, so I don't care about anything that gets chipped or scratched or anything right now. So I cleaned the nut plates out in the body with the 5/16 by 24 tap, and so everything should go in really nice. Not going to tear up any threads on anything for final assembly and run into an issue when I got fresh paint on there. I have never removed a nut plate out of the door front or the rear doors of the 4-door, so I'm not even sure how you access them. You must have to cut a hole in the B-pillar to get access to it. I don't know. The fronts you can pull out by reaching up in there, but the rears, I am unsure. If I remember right, I already cleaned these nut plates back here when I drilled the holes out for these covers, but I can't remember, so I went ahead and did it again anyway. I don't use a cordless impact or anything like that, because that'll just put some more strain on the threads. I don't want to take a chance, so I'll just do it by hand. middle bolts I'm just going to leave loose. I'm just doing the top and the bottom. There's 3 screws per hinge. So I'm doing the top one and the bottom one on the top hinge and the top one and the bottom on the bottom hinge. That way I don't have to sit there and loosen 6 screws or bolts every time. Okay. Man, I got it in the ballpark up here. I got the line pretty much really close. 4 doors, the rear doors are always super tight gaps, super tight. And they never line up real nice either, so you got to bend and tweak and pry and... All right, so I'm going to move the top in a little bit. Man, these things are terrible. Okay, I'm going to draw a line with a fine tip Sharpie on there. The bottom hinge is about where it needs to be. So I just traced around the hinge is all I did, just one side of it. Now you never want to leave Sharpie marker on a car. It will bleed through the primer, the paint, and everything and come through your paint. So you definitely want to remove that. So once I get the door final adjusted, get it, the hinges drilled and pinned, and I remove the door, I will clean off that Sharpie mark with lacquer thinner, Scotch-It disc, or whatever I got laying around. Tighten it, see if it changed. Wow, that got really high at the back. This is what kind of sucks. when you're messing with these cars because they were never perfectly fit from the factory. So right now, this is in line with the B-pillar right here, really nice. Pretty decent on the rocker till about right here, and this is kicked out. This could be bent out a little bit, so I'll go in here with a spoon and slap on this a little bit to get this adjustment here. So it's not too bad lined up here, it's not too bad up to here, and about right there, this is out. This is out pretty bad, and it's high. Problem is, of course I'm tied up here, so that hinge, this door needs to go down, but the other thing you have to keep in mind is I still have to load the door with the parts. So that will actually bring the door down a little bit. So you've got a body line swoop right here, pretty tight belt line. So this is lined up really nice. This one is super high. You can see how high off that is. So at this point, I'm going to load the door with the parts. And I'm just going to set them in there. I'm not going to bolt them in there. So this adds weight to the door and will make the back of the door sag. So be sure when you're aligning your panels that you do set the stuff back in there. You don't have to bolt it in, you just set it in there, but put it in about the area that it goes in the bottom of the door. Okay, now let's see how much it changed. It is just a little bit lower, just a little bit, so it still needs to come down a little bit more. It's kind of crazy because this door needs to come down at the back. When you come down at the back, the front of the door goes forward. This is pretty much almost touching right now. That is a super, super tight gap down here. So this door is going to have to be gapped to save the paint, keep it from getting chipped and scratched. Because when you go to putting high build primers and paint, especially if you're doing base coat, clear coat, you're adding a lot of mil thickness of paint. So it's going to tighten those gaps up really, really big, so, or really, really tight. So that is pretty much asking for trouble. So I can already tell that this door is going to have to be twisted because it's good right here. This is out, so this door is going to have to be twisted. And this is exactly how I tore my back up the other day, but it's got to be done, so might as well get started. I don't know what I did with my block of wood. I have a couple of foot long piece of wood. I guess this one will have to work. Well, I got quite a bit of it right there. That got it really close just doing that. a little bit more though. All right. That is not bad. Now I think I'm going to have to shim that hinge up here. I think I'm going to have to work this corner of this door to get it nice, but right now I'm trying to get this body line to match up, because if this body line doesn't match up, when that 210 belt line stainless goes on there, it'll be like this. So this has to be in line. And I will cut and beat and weld and do whatever I need to do to make sure that that lines up good. I cannot stand mismatched stainless. It drives me insane, man. So the door needs to come down. And I can either shim that top hinge, put some shims behind the hinge to the body in between them, or I can try to pull this door down, and I'm trying right now to decide what I want to do. Yeah, it didn't do anything. So I guess I'm going to have to put shims behind the hinge. Dang it. Dang it, dang it, dang it. Now I gotta find some washers. So what I will do is I will find a washer that fits in there, because some washers are thicker than the others. I will find a washer that I need that's the correct thickness to get my door to come down like I need it to. After that, when I pull this door back off, I will use a caliper and I'll find out the thickness of that washer, and I will match it up to some sheet metal I have over here. And I will trace out, stick the sheet metal up to the hinge, and I will trace that out, draw the circles for the holes for the bolts, and then I will cut that. I will drill it first, drill the 3 holes, and then I will cut that out of sheet metal, and then I will have a steel shim to put in there that's not visible. So a lot of work sometimes to do this crap, I tell you. It's it always seems like you got to jump through hoops, but that's the one thing about a 4-door is everything is, you got to do everything twice pretty much. You need 4 door handles, you need 4 door seals, you need to gap 4 doors. So that's a pretty good thick one right there. This is a slide tray I have of a bunch of stainless steel nuts and washers, so it comes in handy. these two are the same thickness. Let's try these first. All right, now that's in line right there. So that is awesome. But it sure spaced out this. That is not good. So this is going to be a mess. Those washers I used are too thick. So I'm going to have to replace them with thinner ones because I've got too wide of a gap here now. Dang it. Man, these things suck. Those were some pretty thick washers I used. Normally stainless steel washers, when you buy, you know, like hardware store stainless steel washers, are usually pretty thin, and 9 times out of 10 the center hole doesn't match the bolt you're trying to use it for. Like if it says it's for 3/8 and you get it, it'll be wobbly on the bolt, so it kind of sucks, but it's just the way it is. Anyway, I better turn the video off because it's already 21 minutes. All right, so it's going to be quite a bit of work, and this is what you notice when you really look at a 4-door rear doors. This is pretty common areas for these to not fit right. So usually this part of the door on 4 doors is always high. So you can get a pretty decent line all the way around, but it'll always be high right here on this body line right here, just a little bit. Anyway, I've messed with that door hinge, I've tweaked on it, I've shimmed it, I've tried everything, and I just can't get it. If you try to adjust the door to get this lined up, it screws up a lot of other stuff as usual. Now the gaps are always super tight on 4 doors, so you know, some 4 doors you'll see out and about, you'll see chip paint on the doors back here because it's such tight clearances. So if you'll notice up here, now I took a DA to the edge of the door edge and rolled the paint over a little bit, so it's all bare metal everywhere. So you'll notice that that's a pretty thick gap right there, but right here it is super tight, almost all the way down. Now I ended up working this edge right through here, and I actually found a little bit of rust right here. There's some holes right there, so I'll have to end up putting a patch panel in here, which I have done before. Just going to cut out some sheet metal and put in there. But anyway, so I used a spoon, this is what I call a spoon. I have a couple of different ones here, but anyway, I opened up the door and just pretty much slapped on it a little bit right here to get that edge rolled in. When I got down here and I looked down this line from here down, this was actually coming out. So when I ended up using the slapper spoon there and folded it back, now it's all straight looking down it. So I've got it pretty much dialed in at this point. Now I don't have any of the latch stuff in, so anyway, so it's pretty good. The line on the bottom's even from top to bottom all the way across the bottom of the rocker. The door skin has a really sharp point on it, and the body has a roll to it right here. So I'm going to roll this and then tack it and then regrind it and file it to match. Now this part here, this is what some guys may not know. Now there is an adjustment here when you're doing your rear doors on your 4-door. A lot of guys may not know this. So the first thing you want to do when you're doing the alignment, do not worry about this part here. This is a spot welded on little strip of sheet metal here with a folded edge. This right here can be moved around. So you really want to focus on this line right here to your B-pillar. This part right here, this is part of the B-pillar right here. This piece is added on. You can see the seam right here. So make sure you get a good line there, which I do, and make sure it's even. When that door is even at the back there, make sure this is even right here, and it is. So if this is even down here and out or in up here, you need to bend the door post. You can do that with a block of wood. You can stick a little piece of wood, open the door, stick a piece of wood up in here to the door, pull the door to it, and then you can bend the upper part of the frame in, or vice versa. You can put the block of wood right here, close the door on it, and then push here and it will pull that out. Or put a socket up here, or your slapper spoon, anything. You can use just about anything to adjust doors. So anyway, at this point, this is a little bit wide right here, and when you get to looking at this piece, this is actually in that way from this, just a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll go in here and I'm gonna remove that rubber bumper right there. I'm gonna go in here and do that number right there. So now that line is pretty nice. It just took a little bitty bit. So this line here, it does look like it gets a little tight right in here. The problem is this lower piece is spot welded to this, so this is going to be an issue. So this is tight right here on the corner. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to roll lock this with a 36 grit disc. I'm going to get the corner, and I'm basically going to open that to the gap that I want. I'll probably come up a little bit here. It won't take much right here. This is a folded over skin. So as long as I don't go through and just take it a little bit, I think I'll end up doing it. But I still have primer and paint and stuff on here. Car's been painted several times, so there is a buildup of paint in here, so I need to go through here and sand this down. But anyway, so I am gonna grind this edge to get a good line here. I'm gonna work on this corner right here. Anyway, the top is pretty good. The only thing that the issue is usually on these 4-doors is this part right here. So this is always higher right here. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to take a cutoff wheel and I'm going to slice it right in that crease right there. I'm going to slice that up 3 or 4 inches. And then at that point, what that'll do is it's an 1/8 inch disc, 0.045 I think is what that disc is actually. These are the ones I get. You can get them at Lowe's or anywhere. Yeah, 0.045. They do have thinner ones, but I never can find them around here. They're always out or whatever. But anyway, I get the 0.045. They're pretty thin. But anyway, it says stainless and metal cutting. This is a DeWalt. They're all, $2 or $3 a piece. Anyway, so I'm going to slice that right in that edge right there. And when I do that, it's going to take an 1/8 inch out of it right there. So at that point, when I go in there, I'm going to hammer this skin down. So it will close that 1/8 inch slot that I cut. It'll close it up, but it'll roll this to where it matches the quarter right here. So that is what I'm going to do. It'll end up working out. The further I go, the more it'll flow, but also the belt line on a 210, sets on that. So it actually sticks out a little bit. But anyway, that's pretty much what I'm going to do to get a good gap. But I'm going to have to end up grinding the back of this door off pretty good until the skin comes loose. Then I'm going to go back and re-weld the whole thing to get a little bit wider of a gap, because that is way too thin. But this is just part of it for a four-door, so if you want some pretty nice gaps and you don't want your paint getting chipped up, this is what's going to have to be done. Every car is going to be different, so, and the reality is I don't have this car bolted down to the chassis, so this is really not the ideal way to do this. I'm really gambling right now doing this, but I've messed with quite a few four-doors through the years, fixing them up and painting them and stuff, and this is common right here on a four-door. Some gaps will be crazy, some gaps will be just way too tight. But if you don't want chip and paint, this is what you got to do. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and slice that, do some hammering on it, and I think I'm going to put a tape line down here and start getting it where I want it to grind it loose. So I'm going to get started. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, that's a nice gap right there. I can live with that. Nice. Time to go get something to drink. I got it pretty good though. It is, it's pretty nice. I got this, the door point, the door curve was too sharp for the body, so I matched it, had to weld it up because it split. So I got it all ground, refiled. I got this area worked where I sliced that, I pulled that over. Now I'm jumping the gap there to weld. I'm gonna take my time on that. I don't want to get it really hot and warp it all to hell. So anyway, it's nice and even across all the way around, so I'm happy with it. The only problem is my lower part of the door down here, this front corner, it has to be cut or ground until it splits, and then I got to repair that, weld it again. But the problem is when you open a door on the rear of one of these cars, the door goes in, so I can't get in there to do any work to it like the front door. The front door comes out, but these four-door doors, the front of the door goes in, so I'll have to remove the door to do that. So I'll just eyeball it. I've already drew it out, drew the line I need, so I'll just eyeball it and call it a day. So I'm not going for perfection gaps, I'm just going for so I don't have paint chips. I did perfection on the hard top, I'm not doing it on this. It would take way too much time to make this absolutely perfect. Anyway, I'm happy with it. I got an even line here, even line under there. This is even pretty much all the way around. This area right here is always the problem on the four doors, but that was pretty extensive to have to do that. But I mean, it's easier to do that than it is to cut out rust and build a patch and fix that. This was pretty much nothing. So that's pretty much how you gap a door. I mean, it's that simple. You basically grind it, or if it's too wide of a gap, you just fill it with weld, just keep tacking, building tacks up on it, and then you go back and grind it. I grind it about 90%, 95%, then I finish it off with a big file, because the file will help you get it straight. But that's the best part about not having the latch stuff in the doors. You can pull it open and close as many times as you want. Now, I do have a brand new rubber bumper that goes in these cars. I do have that one installed down there, so when you put it to, it's where it needs to be. But I've got a beautiful line, so I'm happy with it, man. Whew, a lot of work. I've still got more welding and grinding to do. All right, guys, so I got the gaps pretty much done. Now, again, they're not 100% perfect, but they look really nice. I'm pretty happy with it. If I wanted to go for show car perfection, it would take a lot more time. But anyway, I got it good. I'm not gonna have to worry about chipping paint and that kind of crap now. So it was a lot of work. I would say it's probably, I don't even know, probably 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon. So it's taken pretty much a whole day to do this. Now I've got to do a patch piece here. I'll have to cut this out and then cut a piece out to fit, but weld it in and grind it. So that would pretty much take the rest of the day to do that. I'm not going to build a patch with the door on the car. I'm going to do it with it off the car so I can have it on sawhorses instead of laying down here on the floor pretty much. But anyway, that is the gap right there, all the way up and in. This is all even. I can't get the door to stay in. I got to push it in to get it on the bumper, a little rubber bumper, but this is all welded back, and I went in and ground it and worked it a little bit, so now this is perfectly even. But anyway, I got a good gap there all around the door. This is really, really nice all the way down. This gap down here is even. The only problem I have is right here on this edge, and I've drew it out with a fine tip Sharpie, so I'm gonna have to do it after I get it off the car. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the door now and work that corner while everything's laying here. So, and I may go ahead and patch that rust since the welder's here. I mean, it ain't gonna take 5 minutes to build a little patch and get that put in there, so I may do that as well. But anyway, when I was doing body work on this car a month or so ago, I noticed I had a pretty big little dent right here in the door jamb, and I tried pulling it out a little bit with my stud gun, and I had to do a little flat hammering right here. But anyway, I've got filler in there, so when you're looking at this gap, it kind of messes with you because of that white filler edge right there. But that gap is really, really nice, and the door actually fits the car all the way around. So, man, that's a lot of work. I gotta tell you, that is a lot of work, but I am happy with it. I think it'll be fantastic. I probably need to go find these dividers that go in here. These are bolt-on units that go in here, and I pretty much probably am going to have to grind the back, keep putting it on and grinding the back until it fits. I did one 56 Chevy 4-door one time, and I completely welded that whole piece in solid and then smoothed it all out so it looked like it was part of the B-pillar. And then I went in, I welded this part up here. This is a separate piece. I welded all this up so that was all smooth. I also welded this seam here all the way up into the jamb here. This is a little spot welded on little triangle piece right here. But anyway, I had welded all of this. I welded down in there all the way around. I think I cut these tabs off right here, a little tab that's spot welded. I think I cut that off straight and then built up some weld and then ground it until it flowed in, both front and back. But anyway, I welded that seam right there as well and then went through and filed all of it. But it was a lot of work, and I don't know that I want to go through this amount right now, so I might save that for later down the road when I go to paint the car. But you know, right now I just wanted to fit the doors, make sure I didn't have any issues with paint chipping. So anyway, I am done. This was a long video, and it ain't near as long as what it actually took me. So anyway, thanks for watching.